Alrighty, so it's that time of week, usually early week, Monday or Tuesday, that we record the Scaling Creative podcast. And so I figured today I'd take you on a little behind the scenes tour of how we make it happen. We're about 5 episodes in, but we're really still evaluating like the best camera angles, the best setup, the best lighting, audio, all that kind of stuff. We're always trying to just find the best, most efficient solution. One of the hardest parts about the podcast has been the fact that there's so much setup right now involved with it that I'm trying to just figure out the best way to do it so that I can do it efficiently and as fast as possible every time. So let me take you on a quick tour. So the setup itself is relatively simple. There's 4 of us at a table, obviously. This table is not gonna be the one that we keep. I wanna do either a square table or a circle table because it's a little bit hard right now because of how narrow this table is to get 5 camera angles to not be blocked by something. So right now though, this is what we're doing. There's 4 of us that sit, 1, 2, 3, 4. And the entire thing is really just lit by this overhead light. This is the light that I did the little review on. And obviously we have daylight over here and we have daylight over there. But for the most part, what's really just providing the light is the overhead that works really, really well. Super even, incredibly even actually. Even more than I would think. We do try to record in the morning, so usually on a Monday morning or Tuesday morning first thing, because of the fact that the sun comes from this way over top of the office and it eventually is over here. In the afternoon, the light is very unpredictable on this side of the office, so we prefer to do it in the mornings because the sun is over there, and more importantly, there's also less traffic that goes by during that time. So our goal is to usually record at 9 a.m., 10 a.m.-ish on a Monday or a Tuesday, so that light stays super consistent. Camera-wise, this is what we've been really trying to work, and we still don't necessarily know if we have it exactly how we want, but we do 5 cameras. We do 1 wide shot, and then we do 1 tight shot on every single person on the podcast. Now, that is obviously the goal. That's probably what we'll do no matter what. It gives us flexibility to cut if we need to like cut something out. We have more cameras to cut back to, and we don't have to worry about it being one flawless take since we do edit the podcast after. And for the most part, we try to do it so that there's not really other stuff in this shot, the tight shots, besides the person speaking, but every once in a while, which is pretty common, there's usually like a microphone or a piece of something as it's going through, because the fact that this is a really narrow table. If we get around one, it'll make it much easier to be able to keep camera angles consistent and not have to worry about other things being in the way, but it's just what we do right now. So the first camera here shoots straight across all the way to this seat right here. And basically that seat right there is where today Mindy was sitting. We can sometimes change where people are sitting, but you can see that's the shot that we have on it. So it's just a tight shot on her. You can see there's obviously a little bit of microphone in the shot, but for the most part, that's how we like it. It looks nice, nice clean background. So the second angle here shoots across over to Michaela all the way on the other side of the actual table. This is a 75 millimeter. So was the other lens I just showed you over there. That's also a 75 millimeter. So the tight shots going across, all the way across the table, are 75 millimeters. And that's what this shot looks like. That's Michaela shooting across. You can see there's just a little bit of microphone in the shot on both sides, and that just stays focused on her. And these other 2 cameras we've been experimenting with, sometimes we've been shooting from this angle here, going between the 2 chairs to the person on the other side. So in this case, it was Pablo. And that seemed to work pretty decently. You just have to worry about these chairs getting in the way of that shot. So that's the only thing that's kind of difficult with it. But today, that's what we ended up doing. And then the last camera is me right here. This is a 45 millimeter. It shoots right over to that spot right there. If that's me sitting there, then that would be me. If it's someone else, then whoever's at that chair. And then this is essentially what that shot looks like. And it's a little overexposed on my camera here, but that ends up working really, really well. Then from an audio perspective, Pablo uses a Shure SM58. I think it actually sounds really good on his voice, so it actually works really well. Mindy uses a Shure SM58 as well. Very inexpensive mics that sound very, very good for what they are. Michaela is actually using the Schoeps MK41, which I have her using today. Sometimes she uses a 58 as well, but today it was just the MK41. Then I use the Shure SM7B as my main mic. We put sound blankets usually kind of around these different areas of the hardwood just to kind of cover some of the sound. All of the sound as of recently actually goes into the Behringer X32 rack. I actually just started using this setup only for the last 2 episodes because I'm trying to use the auto mix function. So one of the difficulties of recording all these live mics simultaneously is that it takes a lot of work in post-production to actually get them to be like a consistent leveled out volume. So what I'm trying actually is using the X32 rack and the auto mix function that the Behringer has, because it allows you to set like thresholds and have it just auto mix whoever's talking. And I used it for the first time in the last podcast, and then I used it again for these podcasts that we're recording, and seems to work pretty well. It requires a little bit more work in the beginning, just making sure that all your EQ and everything is set up, because you can't adjust it after the fact. So just kind of working through tweaking it a little bit. I wasn't crazy about how it sounded the first episode, but this episode sounded a lot better. But I'm using the Behringer X32. Everything's going into that rack, but then it's recording onto the Zoom F8. So I'm coming out stereo, going right into the F8 as my main recorder here. So each podcast we shoot in full 4K. So with 5 cameras plus audio, it's usually about 350 gigs per podcast. So it's not a small amount. So after we import all the footage, we obviously bring it into its own library. A lot of people ask when I'm editing, like, do I have a master library that's like podcast or my YouTube channel, for example, and do I create separate events out of it? And what I end up doing actually for something like the podcast where I have lots of footage is I know that I can't just have a library build up and be terabytes and terabytes full. So I actually create in Final Cut a different library for every single one of those podcasts. And then I create all the stuff around that episode in that library. That way I can just transfer that library specifically to like an SSD or to my computer, do all the editing for it, and then I can just transfer it back. If I let everything build up in one library, it would just be a massive library, and that would not be a lot of fun to have to try to transfer back and forth when I'm doing something with it. So that's kind of how I do it. That's also how I do it with a lot of different client work, even ongoing clients. Each time we film with them, I actually create a separate library for, and that way it makes managing it a little bit easier and not have to be one huge library. I'm gonna do a video really soon all about my actual post-production for the podcast. I actually had recorded an entire one about 2 weeks ago, but then realized that I wasn't actually recording the computer audio when I was editing it, so yeah, I wasn't happy about that. But regardless, I'm going to show you how I do the whole editing for it. It's actually become relatively quick and easy for me to do, which is awesome. And then I take all the other pieces from the podcast and I create the micro content out of it that you see come out on social media, which is something that I really do want to also talk about. Still, one of the most common questions that I get that people ask all the time is like how I decide what I should put on like what platform, and people ask what they should post on Instagram and LinkedIn and all that. And I really can't give you like a tutorial of what thought process goes into my brain, other than simply I will take something that will be for Scaling Creative Podcasts, for example, and that will go out on the Instagram, and then I will try to think about what pieces in the podcast, that specifically episode, can I post that are as more like ideal for a LinkedIn environment, whether it's about sales or branding. What piece can I grab that's like personal brand content from it versus additional stuff from Scaling Creative? And I'm always just trying to really strategically think about where I'm posting that stuff. It would be easy for me to just take the one snippet that I create for Instagram or Facebook and just put that everywhere, but I really think there's more value, and I've seen it work and be more effective when I strategically try to think about what would target and reach that audience better, and then create a piece that's just specifically for that audience, rather than just kind of posting everywhere. Like I've said before, I think it's much more valuable. Then after we're all done recording it, we clean everything back to normal. And that's it. I'm excited for you guys to hear the episode that we recorded today, which was all about relationships and the importance of relationships. I've talked about this so many times before on my podcast and on this channel, that relationships are everything. So I'm really, really pumped for you to hear that. Also, another episode that's coming very soon, we're going to talk all about efficiency in the workplace. That's one that I cannot preach enough in terms of just the importance of it. What systems do we use to keep in touch with people, to work with clients, to communicate internally? So many great pieces I think will come out of that podcast. So be on the lookout for that as well. It's all coming. I love this podcast. I love kind of just the idea of making more content that is valuable around Scaling Creative. So that's what I'm going to keep working on. Yo, shout out your company right now.
Green Turf Care, local, family-owned, right here in the Lehigh Valley, providing organic-based fertilizer, weed control, aeration, seeding, grub control.
Jeff is doing some great work with this company. He's all over social media. Anyone that lives in the Lehigh Valley would probably have seen this face about 1 million times. If you're outside the valley, you probably have no clue even what the Lehigh Valley is. But regardless, his company is awesome. Great branding.
Yeah.
We just did episodes and podcasts all about personal branding and about company branding. You do it really well. Any tips on branding for people listening? Why do you think it's so important to have your face out there nonstop?
Yeah, one of the first practical reasons for me would be Google AdWords. So if I can get someone can see my website or someone can see my flyer or my trucks out there, they just Google search Green Turf. I'm able to get up in front of them with really cheap branding ads. That's one of the first things. And then just as a whole, they're constantly seeing me. They're seeing my trucks in all my video ads. They're seeing my trucks past their neighborhood. They're seeing my trucks on postcards, you name it. And that's the biggest thing that I've done is trucks for me, because we're a service, so we're at homes every day.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Keep it up. Seriously, Jeff is such an awesome guy. They just are super kind people. They care a lot about their customers. And I'm just excited because we're gonna help them with some video work as well. So it's gonna be awesome. I cannot wait. I love when I find companies that are already doing things well and wanna do things even better. And then they allow us to actually showcase that on video. It's a perfect match in my opinion. Thanks, Jeff. Wait, you can't see him. Thanks, Jeff. But thanks for watching. Hopefully this was somewhat valuable to you. You can learn a little bit more about how we do things. And until next time, thanks for watching.